All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Donald Jones. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Next to me here is Montra Lockwood, also a forecaster here at the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles. And over the next little while, we're going to talk a little bit about the freezing rain that we're expecting late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and then continuing all the way through much of the day, pretty much the whole day on Monday into Monday night and into Tuesday morning as well. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to switch over to our presentation here, and we'll preface before we begin here by saying this is a fairly new technology that we're dealing with tonight, so if we run into a few snags, just bear with us and we'll try to get everything back online just as quick as we possibly can. All right, so we'll start by taking a look at pretty much where we stand this evening. Oh, now what I say? See, didn't take very long for us to hit our first snag. Let me see if I can jump back in here. Maybe. Maybe not.
Sometime.
There we go. All right, basically this is taking a look at the current conditions across the area this evening. We've got a cold front that is draped pretty much right across the coast here. It kind of stalled out this afternoon just north of the Lake Charles area, so we had a pretty strong temperature grade with Lake Charles getting into the mid to upper 70s. Beaumont actually hit 81 this afternoon, and Orange was 80 degrees, so it was quite warm across the area, but just a few miles north, up into Jasper and Newton County, we had temperatures in the 40s for most of the day. So the front's finally started to make its way through the Lake Charles area this afternoon, and we'll be noticing those much cooler conditions filtering in pretty quickly behind it once it moves through. What we're looking at here is actually the temperature forecast and rain over the next 24 to 36 hours here. Is beginning at midnight tonight. We'll see scattered light showers across the area, pretty much just a continuation of what we've seen this afternoon, but maybe just increasing slightly in coverage. Once that front has moved through the area, we'll see temperatures drop down into the lower 40s. Going into 6 a.m. Monday, we'll see, again, pretty much continuation of those scattered light showers. This is going to kind of be the story here for the next 24 to 36 hours. There's nothing really heavy forecast to move through the area. Just a whole lot of light showers, and that activity as temperatures drop below freezing is what's going to turn into our freezing rain event. As you can see here, by 6 a.m. on Monday, you can see temperatures 35 degrees. You can see the contour here running across northern parts of our area, Rapides, Vernon, and Avoyles parishes, as well as the northern parts of Jasper and Newton counties. And this is where we're going to start seeing our freezing rain potential once the temperatures begin to drop below freezing here about 6 a.m. on Monday. Continuing through about noon on Monday, you can see the temperatures are actually continuing to drop as we go through the day. That 35-degree contour was up further north in the last image here, and now you can see it's dropped as far south as Hardin, southern Jasper and Newton, and really into northern Calcasieu Parish as well. So what we're expecting here is that the freezing rain will begin across northern parishes and counties and then spread further south as we go through the day on Monday. By 6 p.m., we see continued scattered light showers with temperatures well below freezing pretty much all the way down to about midway through Cameron Parish. So much of the area well below freezing, and at this point we're expecting most of the area to be looking at some form of freezing precipitation. As we go into midnight on Tuesday, pretty much a just continuation of any rainfall that does fall will do so most likely as freezing rain. 6 a.m., more of the same. And then by noon on Tuesday, we finally see temperatures getting back up to the point where we're not expecting freezing rain anymore. Just a little sliver of temperatures right around freezing up here towards northern Tyler and northern Newton and Jasper counties. But other than that, the rain will quickly come to an end, it looks like, by about noon on Tuesday. So here's a look, a little more detail about the exact locations and timing of the freezing rain. We'll be looking at freezing rain beginning across northern parts of the area, like I said, northern Tyler, Newton, and Jasper, as well as Vernon, Rapides, and Avoyles, beginning as early as 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. This particular graphic shows the areas that could see freezing rain beginning anywhere between 6 a.m. and noon, but as early as 6 a.m. And this will continue, like I said, pretty much through about midday on Tuesday. Areas further south are still going to be looking at rain at this time, but as we move forward here from noon to 6 p.m., you can see that freezing rain line drops a little further to the south through basically northern Hardin, southern Newton and Jasper, as well as northern Beauregard, and further east to the extreme northern parts of St. Landry Parish. But here's where things get interesting. From about 6 p.m. to midnight is when we really start seeing the temperatures are going to drop quickly after sunset, and any rain that is in the area is most likely going to wind up freezing across the area, basically from the I-10 corridor northward. Now, areas very close to the coast, it's very difficult to get temperatures below freezing in those areas, so you probably won't see any freezing rain at all through this event. It's going to remain mostly rain. And then pretty much a continuation of the exact same freezing line from midnight Tuesday through about 11 a.m. on Tuesday. This is when we expect those temperatures to get back above the freezing point. And in addition to converting any rain that's falling from freezing rain back to rain, that'll also give any ice that's accumulated on any roadways or anything a chance to melt. But for most of the day, and especially Monday night, any ice that does fall along roadways will pretty much stay where it is through about midday on Tuesday. We'll get into a little more details about that in just a little bit. Now here's a look of the, I said a little bit, very little bit. This is the look of the ice accumulation we're expecting here. This is going to be for the entire event, basically from 6 a.m. tomorrow morning all the way through noon on Tuesday. And like you would expect, the areas that start seeing the freezing rain the earliest are also going to see the most. Pretty much most of the northern counties here in southeast Texas, Tyler, Jasper, and Newton, as well as Vernon, Rapides, and Avoyles parishes, receiving about 0.10 of an inch of ice accumulation there. Further south, about 0.05 of an inch across southern Tyler, central Jasper and Newton, central Beauregard, and further east all the way again into the extreme northern portions of St. Landry. You'll notice that the ice accumulation forecast kind of lines up pretty well here with the timing of the ice falling, because it's all going to be very light. We're not going to see a whole lot in the way of heavy accumulations anywhere, so it's really just going to be a matter of how long the precipitation falls. Areas even further south along the I-10 corridor are probably only going to see about 1/100th of an inch of accumulation, if any at all. It's just as likely as not as the I-10 corridor probably won't see any accumulation. And then, of course, further down south near the coast here, no accumulation expected at all. So in light of that, we do have winter weather advisories posted, especially across northern parts of the area where the largest accumulations are expected. Winter weather advisory begins for Tyler, Jasper, Newton, Vernon, Rapides, and Avoyelles at 6 a.m. on Monday and will remain in effect until noon on Tuesday. Beauregard, Allen, and Evangeline will have winter weather advisory that begins on 6 p.m. Monday. Now, that's 12 hours later than the winter weather advisory to the north, and that'll also continue through noon on Tuesday because the parishes further south here aren't expected to get on that freezing precipitation until a little while later. Okay, now a winter weather advisory basically means that we're expecting ice accumulations that are greater than 0 but less than 1/4 of an inch. Why 1/4 of an inch? That's basically just an arbitrary number that the Weather Service came up with. But in general, anything more than 1/4 of an inch usually is when you begin to see significant damage to properties, large tree limbs coming down, and the like. And in which case, we would issue what was called a winter storm warning rather than a winter weather advisory. The advisory is the lesser of the two. We would also issue a winter weather advisory if we expected snow or sleet accumulation less than 2 inches. If it was more than 2 inches, we would expect to see a winter storm warning. But again, we're not expecting any snow or sleet accumulation or any really sleet or snow falling with this event. It's all going to be pretty much just a freezing rain event. So that's why we have the winter weather advisory in effect in this case. So to summarize basically what we're talking about here a little bit, we've got an evolving freezing rain event that's expected here over the next 2 days, Monday and into Tuesday morning. Between 6 and 9 a.m. Monday morning is when we expect that ice accumulation to begin across northern parts of the area, and then basically spreading southward from there as we go, especially into the evening Monday night, overnight Monday, and into Tuesday morning. We'll expect that freezing rain to begin along the I-10 corridor Monday night, and then basically continue until about 9 or 10 a.m. Tuesday morning, at which point we'll still potentially see ice accumulation from ice falling further north, but just like it kind of worked its way south, it's going to have to work its way back north again with temperatures warming basically from the coast further inland. And then temperatures will warm back into the 40s by Tuesday afternoon. The threat of freezing rain will end, and on top of that, any ice that has accumulated should melt quickly, especially considering that we're not expecting a whole lot in the way of accumulation. It shouldn't take very long for that ice to melt off. So once temperatures get above freezing, say about 11 o'clock, by about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I'd venture to say that any road closures or anything associated with this ice should be lifted, and everything should be in pretty good shape from there. So we're going to come back to us here if I can. Now that you're tired of listening to my voice, no doubt. All right, here we are. Hi, welcome back. All right. Now, like I said earlier, we were here basically to answer your questions, and we've got numerous questions, in fact, from Facebook and Twitter throughout the afternoon. Most of them have basically been something along the lines of, is there going to be ice where I'm at in my particular parish or county? And are my roads going to close? Are the schools going to close? There's all the common questions that we expect to see with any kind of winter weather event. So basically what we're going to do in just a minute is go county by county and discuss with each county what we're expecting for that particular county or parish. I should say. That's the joys of being in both Texas and Louisiana. We have to deal with counties and parishes, and I always seem to annoy somebody when I say county and or parish because people are very particular about that. But before we get into the county by county and parish by parish, Mantra here is going to give us a few answers to some of the other questions that we've had beyond that. So. Okay. What do we have here, Mantra?
Well, one of the questions that came in referred to Acadia Parish. Wanted to know if that was going to be included in the watch or actually the advisory that's been issued. And right now, it's not in there, and we aren't really expecting it to be issued. We think any accumulation of ice that takes place in Acadia Parish or anywhere along the I-10 corridor it isn't expected to be quite high enough to maybe warrant worthy of an advisory. The main impacts will probably relate more to elevated roadways, bridges, and those types of things potentially having some ice on them. And so people will be urged to use caution when they're out driving Monday night and Tuesday morning. So right now, no, Acadia Parish is not included in the watch or the advisory, and I don't expect any of the I-10 parishes and counties to be included. Another question was, how will this affect I-10 near Lake Charles? And like I just said, the main impacts are most likely going to be on the area of bridges, especially around Lake Charles. I-10 and 210 bridges are both going to probably have a little bit of ice on them. People are going to need to use caution when driving over these bridges. I don't expect there to be enough accumulation where they may close those roads. But, it could be a little bit slippery out there, and everybody needs to drive really carefully when they are out during this time.
And keep in mind when doing this or while we're discussing this, that this is all based, all of this, these answers we're giving here are based on our current forecast, which could change slightly one way or the other over the next 12 to 24 hours. So if the Lake Charles area does get more ice accumulation than we're expecting, then you could wind up with bridges and roadways more affected.
More significant impacts, and then we could see the advisory shifted to the south. But like I said, at this point in time, we feel like it's probably not going to be quite that bad this far south. Okay. And I did have regarded school closures, and I did a quick check on the internet just a little while ago and looked up on the KALB TV website up in central Louisiana. They did mention that the public schools in Avoyelles Parish, Rapides Parish, and Vernon Parish are all going to be closed tomorrow, as well as Louisiana College, LSU Alexandria, and also several private schools around the area are supposed to be closed tomorrow. And keep in mind, there's the potential for additional closures on Tuesday, as we are expecting most of the ice to accumulate probably anywhere from Monday afternoon through Tuesday morning. So keep in tune with that. I did not see anything as far as closures further south anywhere across, like around Lake Charles, Lafayette, or Beaumont, anywhere in those areas.
And all school closures are based from the individual school boards and the individual parishes and counties that they represent. So they make their own independent decisions. So just because one parish or county over is closed doesn't necessarily mean that the schools in your parish or county are. So make sure you, especially in the morning when you wake up, check your local media outlets, online or on television. They'll have all the latest information for that, because as soon as those school boards make those decisions, they immediately notify the media, who then turn around to notify the public.
Okay. Then another question, can we expect a winter storm warning in Orange County, Texas, or some other advisory? Most likely it would be an advisory if it did get extended to the south. As he pointed out earlier, for it to be a winter storm warning, we'd probably have to expect at least an accumulation of about 1/4 of an inch, and we certainly don't see that, at least not this far south. But it is possible that the advisory could be extended southward, but like I said, at this point in time, it's looking like it probably won't need to be quite this far south. Is it safe to travel from Ville Platte to Lafayette Monday morning? Now that could be a potential issue, especially with accumulations, especially across points further north, closer to Ville Platte. Most roadways are expected to likely be pretty safe, but again, the elevated roads and the bridges are ones that you really got to use extra caution on. So I wouldn't say it's completely safe to travel. You're going to need to use a lot of caution when you are out traveling, especially Monday morning and into Tuesday morning as well. Another question, actually, will it reach Baton Rouge? And that's actually a little bit east of the area that we actually cover. But I did look at Slidell, New Orleans's office, at the forecast they have out, and theirs pretty much matches up well with ours as far as expecting the freezing precipitation to stop mainly north of I-10, or at least the heaviest precipitation stopping north of I-10. So at this point in time, they did not have any freezing rain in the forecast for Baton Rouge. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there might be a brief period where they do see some over there, but most of the accumulations are expected to stay north of that area at this time. And that's it for now.
Sound good. All right. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer, we are checking Facebook and Twitter periodically. Just go ahead and post your question in the comments section there, and we'll take a look at it and answer it in just a little while. But first, we're going to go ahead and take a look now at the county by county impacts and expectations for this event. Go ahead and pull that up real quick. Okay, and we'll start way up north with Tyler County. A lot of this will be just kind of a rehash of what we've already kind of touched on a little bit, but it gives you a little more detail county by county what to expect. Freezing rain expected to begin as early as 6 a.m. on Monday across Tyler County, and we'll continue that on and off, like I said, basically through 11 a.m. or right around midday on Tuesday when those temperatures warm back up. The winter weather advisory is in effect from 6 a.m. Monday, so a little over, 10, 11 hours from now, beginning until noon on Tuesday. We'll be looking at ice accumulations up to about 1/10 of an inch across the northern half of the county. Now, the southern half of the county is not expected to see quite as much, with only about 5/100ths of an inch expected. Now, 10/100ths of an inch or 1/10 of an inch could result in a few sporadic power outages. Now, power outages during ice storms basically occur when large tree branches build up ice on them, and ice, of course, is very heavy. So any dead or decaying tree branches that have a lot of ice built up on them could have the potential to fall. And if they fall on power lines, then you could wind up with sporadic power outages. Kind of like I kind of hinted at earlier, you usually need about 1/4 of an inch of ice on tree branches to get them to fall. But if you do have a dead or decaying tree branch, 1/10 of an inch might be able to do it. So we could be looking at some sporadic power outages across the area, but nothing widespread. And any power outages that do occur should probably be repaired within just a couple of hours or so. Ice accumulations could result in road closures, especially across northern parts of Tyler County, where they're going to see more ice accumulation. Bridges and overpasses are especially vulnerable to this closure. And this is regardless, this is not just Tyler County, but anywhere. If there are going to be roads that are going to be closed, the bridges and overpasses are going to be the first to go because they cool off the quickest because there's a lot of air surrounding the bridges, so they're able to lose heat in the concrete much more quickly, so that allows the ice to stick to it a lot more easily. So regardless of where you're at, if anything is going to freeze over, it'll be your bridges and overpasses first. As far as schools, schools may be closed in Tyler County. Do we have any? We don't have anything on that yet. I didn't
actually look at that one, so I don't know yet.
With Avoyelles, Rapides, and Vernon all closed tomorrow, I'd say it's pretty likely that Tyler County is going to wind up closing their schools. But again, that hasn't been announced yet. There's nothing official there at this point, so make sure to stay tuned to local media outlets, especially early tomorrow morning, and they'll have those decisions for you. Moving on to Jasper County is not going to be a whole lot different than Tyler County, but the fact that it's such an elongated county kind of breaks up the impacts here a little bit north to south. The freezing rain is expected to begin about 6 a.m. on Monday across the northern half of the county, but and then kind of spread south, like we said, throughout the day, with it getting to the southern half of the county by about 6 p.m. Freezing rain continuing on and off again through about midday on Tuesday. The winter weather advisory does cover all of Jasper County until noon on Tuesday. Ice accumulations, again, 10/100ths of an inch northern half, 5/100ths of an inch southern, and pretty much the same thing as with Tyler County. You're going to expect the possibility of sporadic power outages as well as road closures and school closures across the northern half of the county, but the southern half is probably going to be in pretty good shape. Even 5/100ths of an inch can sometimes have the potential, if it builds up on those roadways, to cause a few bridge closures, but for the most part, I'd venture to say that areas that see 5/100ths of an inch or less will probably be in pretty good shape. So I think the southern half of Jasper County should be in pretty good shape. The same thing for Newton, pretty much a carbon copy north to south, with the northern half seeing pretty much the exact same expectations, and then the southern half not expected to see quite as much. For Hardin County, we're going to see freezing rain beginning a little later since it's a little further south by about 6 p.m. on Monday and continue through about 11 a.m. Tuesday. Ice accumulations here are only expected to be about 1/100th of an inch, and the difference between 1/100th of an inch and nothing is not very much, as you would expect. So we're not expecting any significant impacts from 1/100th of an inch or less of ice accumulation. No impacts to travel, and we expect that schools will likely remain open. But again, this is not official, so make sure you check with your local media outlets tomorrow morning. For Jefferson County, we're not expecting any impacts at all. In fact, we're not even expecting any freezing rain across the county. So sorry, Jefferson County kids in Beaumont, you have to go to school. For Orange County, we're going to be seeing freezing rain beginning about 6 p.m. And then again, you could probably break Orange County in half as well, with the northern half possibly seeing some freezing rain, the southern half most likely not. Ice accumulation either way is going to be less than 1/100 of an inch, with no power outages expected or impacts to travel. And again, school's probably going to remain open in Orange County. For Vernon Parish, basically heading back up the same as we saw in the northern Texas counties. We got freezing rain beginning 6 a.m. on Monday, continuing through midday on Tuesday. The winter weather advisory does cover Vernon Parish from 6 a.m. Monday until noon Tuesday. About 10/100ths of an inch of ice expected, with those sporadic power outages again possible. Ice accumulation could result in road closures. As a result, like we just mentioned a little while ago, Vernon Parish has closed their public schools for tomorrow. That has been officially announced. So all public schools in Vernon Parish will be closed tomorrow. And while we're on the topic, they are closed tomorrow. They may also be closed again on Tuesday morning, because again, this is going to be a very long duration event, and that ice buildup is going to stay on the roadways through Tuesday morning. So we don't have anything noted for Tuesday yet, but definitely want to monitor that both tomorrow and Tuesday as well. Rapides Parish, pretty much a carbon copy of the same thing. Again, all Rapides Parish public schools have been closed for tomorrow. Again, no information on Tuesday yet, but pretty much the exact same as Vernon, with the ice accumulation about 1/10 of an inch. Again, leading to possible sporadic power outages, ice accumulations leading to road closures, and the schools are already closed. Avoyelles Parish, more of the same. Again, all public schools closed. The winter weather advisory is up. 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation expected. Again, possible power outages sporadically, with road closures, and schools already closed, as we mentioned. Moving down a little further south to Beauregard Parish. Now we're expecting the freezing rain to begin across the northern part of the parish earlier, so by about noon on Monday, and then, and then working its way further south as we go into the evening. And again, pretty much the freezing rain is going to kind of taper off at the exact same time, pretty much regardless of where you're at, by about midday Tuesday. Winter weather advisory is in effect for Beauregard Parish, but remember, it starts 12 hours later than the parishes further north. So the winter weather advisory starts for Beauregard Parish at 6 p.m. on Monday through noon on Tuesday. Now, ice accumulation in Beauregard Parish is expected to be up to 5/100ths of an inch, and that's going to mainly be across northern parts of the parish, with lower amounts the further south you go. We could be looking at some sporadic power outages again. That's going to be mainly across northern parts of the parish, with that ice accumulation resulting in road closures, again, across the northern parts of the parish. We don't have any official information for Beauregard Parish as far as school closures, but this is one of those instances where it might be kind of split in half, with northern Beauregard Parish schools possibly closing, southern Beauregard Parish schools probably going to stay open. Again, that's not official though, so make sure you check your media tomorrow morning, and pretty much a carbon copy again for Tuesday as well.
Would you like for me to read some of these?
Would you like to read some of these?
Yeah, you sound like you
Okay,
get tired.
I'm going to take a drink of water. Macho's going to talk now.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to Allen Parish. And it's basically just like Beauregard Parish. Again, freezing rain expected to begin at least as early as noon on Monday across the northern half of the parish, and 6 p.m. across southern parts of the parish, with freezing rain continuing off and on through 11 a.m. Tuesday. Of course, the best potential will be during the coolest parts of the day, mainly early in the morning and then at night. So, during the middle of the day, there might be a period where we don't have as much freezing rain. But it still is good to use caution when you're out and about. The winter weather advisory will be in effect from 6 p.m. on Monday until noon on Tuesday, and much like Beauregard Parish, that starts 12 hours later than it does to the parishes just to the north. Ice accumulation up to 5/100ths of an inch across the parish, with lower amounts further south. This could lead to sporadic power outages, and widespread power outages are not expected. Any ice accumulations could result in some road closures, with bridges and overpasses especially vulnerable. And again, schools may be closed. I haven't seen anything yet on Allen Parish schools being closed at this time, and this will be at the discretion of the local boards. Be sure to check your media outlets tomorrow morning. For Evangeline Parish, pretty much the same thing. Freezing rain beginning as early as midday Monday across the northern half, and about 6 p.m. for the southern parts of the parish, with freezing rain continuing through 11 a.m. Tuesday. The winter weather advisory also starts at 6 p.m. for Evangeline Parish, and that will be 12 hours later than the parishes to the north of the area. The ice accumulations of up to 0.05 of an inch are expected, with lower amounts further to the south, and sporadic power outages are again possible across Evangeline Parish. Ice accumulation could result in some road closures, but mainly on bridges and overpasses, with schools possibly being closed as well. For St. Landry Parish, it looks like freezing rain will begin as early as 6 p.m. on Monday, so this is a little bit later than the previous parishes. Across the northern half. For the southern half of the parish, it looks like probably around 6 p.m. Okay.
That was a typo on my part. Apologies. All
probably around. A little bit earlier across northern parts of the parish and around 6 p.m. across southern parts of the parish. And freezing rain will continue again through Tuesday morning. Ice accumulations up to about 1/10 of an inch are expected across extreme northern portions of the parish. Central portions of the parish could see around 0.05 of an inch. That would include Opelousas, with southern parts seeing around 1/100th of an inch. Sporadic power outages may occur across northern parts of the parish, and widespread power outages are not expected, with power outages really not expected across southern parts of the parish where the lighter accumulations occur. The accumulations could result in some road closures across northern parts of the parish, and people will be urged to not drive if they don't have to, and anybody that does have to be out will need to be extremely cautious on the roadways. Further to the south, it will mainly be bridges and overpasses where you need to be especially cautious, with roads expected to remain ice-free across the very southern portions of the parish. Schools, again, may be closed across northern portions of the parish, and we urge you to check with your local school board or with the local media early tomorrow morning before the day starts. Okay, for Calcasieu Parish, freezing rain will begin a little bit later on Monday. It looks like around 6 p.m., continuing through Tuesday morning, so our best potential is going to be tomorrow evening and overnight. Ice accumulations up to about 1/100th of an inch are expected across northern portions of the parish, with no accumulations really expected in the Lake Charles area at this time. Power outages are not expected with these lighter accumulations across the parish, and no impacts to travel are expected. And schools should remain open.
I just heard everybody else say, yeah, oh, they're so sad. School's going to stay open.
Yep, and I have a feeling it's going to be that way for the rest of these parishes. Jefferson Parish, it sounds like the same thing, with freezing rain mainly possible from tomorrow evening into Tuesday morning. Again, accumulations only about 1/100th of an inch across the northern portions of the parish. Again, all of these accumulations are going to be mainly just north of the I-10 corridor, essentially. Anything along I-10 and south, don't really expect much in the way of accumulations. And no power outages are expected, and impacts to travel should be limited. For Acadia Parish, pretty much the same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
Yep. And not expected really to have any impacts across Acadia Parish, except maybe the extreme northern portions of the parish. And similarly with Lafayette, the same thing again. Northern portions of the parish could see about 1/100th of an inch. Southern portions, pretty much no accumulations. Nothing really in the Lafayette area is expected. No impacts are really expected across St. Martin Parish, or Iberia, or Vermilion, or Cameron. All the coastal areas are not expected really to see any kind of freezing precipitation.
All right. Now, if you missed any of that or want to go back and see it again, once this broadcast is complete, it will be posted to our YouTube page as well. We'll provide links for that on our Facebook and Twitter pages as well for you to go back, and you can skip through to look at the individual parishes or counties that interest you. The next thing we want to do is actually talk a little bit about meteorology, which is something me and Mantra know a little bit about. We're actually going to take just a second here to explain what freezing rain is and how it's caused. So let me go ahead and pull up one more little graphic here. Oop, maybe.
Maybe not.
Well,
You can just look at us.
I'm beautiful. Can't speak for everybody in the room. But,
excuse you. Bring up that graphic, will you?
All right. Now, what we're looking here is just a little diagram of basically the atmosphere, with the bottom down here being the surface, and then all the way up to the bottom of the cloud layer here. And basically, the differential between whether we see rain, freezing rain, sleet, or snow is all based on warm air higher up in the atmosphere. Now, most of the time out of the year, in fact, I'd say about 99% of the time across our area, we've got air that's well above freezing from the surface all the way through any part of the atmosphere that would have precipitation in it. But occasionally, as in tomorrow and Tuesday, we do wind up in a situation where we have colder air at the surface and then a warmer layer just off the surface, and then another cold layer. We basically kind of got a sandwich here of cold air on either side with warm air kind of wedged in between. And that's the situation we're going to find ourselves in tomorrow. With the passage of this cold front this evening, we now have very cold air near the surface. And pretty much as it always is, there's very cold air very high in the atmosphere, because the higher you go in the atmosphere, the cooler it tends to be. But in between, we've got a layer of warm air kind of mixed in. So basically what happens here is we have snow crystals up in the upper parts of the atmosphere inside the cloud layer. And as it falls through the atmosphere, it falls through that warm layer. And by warm air, we're not necessarily talking, 80, 90 tropical degrees up there. But, anything above freezing will be enough to cause those snow crystals to melt. Okay, so basically they form into raindrops that you would typically see if they continued falling down to the surface. But before they get to the surface, they encounter yet another mass of colder air that's below freezing, and those raindrops freeze. Or they fall below zero, I should say. The water falls below zero, but it actually stays in its liquid form. Okay, because basically it's very scientific. Now you've got the circumference, the shape of raindrops is actually what causes it to stay in its liquid form, even though it's actually below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So the fact that it's cylindrical or roughly cylindrical allows it to maintain its liquid form. The problem is that once it gets to the surface and hits something, it no longer has that cylindrical form because it splatters everywhere. So when it loses that cylindrical form, it's now below freezing, so it freezes on contact with whatever it comes into contact with, whether it be the ground, a bridge, an overpass, a rail, your head. It doesn't matter. It'll freeze on whatever it happens to come in contact with. So that's what we're going to be looking at pretty much through all day tomorrow and all night tomorrow night. And
I'd say that it does help to have a cold object to land on.
That's true.
If it lands on you, it would probably melt.
It'll melt off pretty quickly. But for a moment, it would be frozen.
That's one reason why the bridges and overpasses are so critical. And they're the first things that tend to see freezing, because they tend to be a little bit colder than, say, the roads that are on the ground, surrounded by soil, which is already going to be warmer. So.
All right. Now, the next part of our little broadcast here is going to be a little more unscripted, because we don't have our questions written down yet. We're actually going to go to our Facebook page and take a look at some of the questions that we've been being asked.
I was going to say one thing, though, about that graphic you were just looking at. You saw how complicated it kind of looked, and that's, I got to admit, one of the toughest aspects of forecasting is actually predicting winter weather. You might think, trying to forecast tornadoes or hurricanes or something like that would be tough. But honestly, I think this is probably the most challenging thing to forecast, because minor little changes in the profile of the temperatures there, the surface, can really change what type of precip we see here, and how much precip could actually, how much could accumulate in the type of precip we would have. So that's why a lot of times we, might say, oh, we'll get some freezing rain, and then it doesn't happen. The temperatures just happen to stay just above freezing at the surface, and that may change everything, over several miles, in fact. So
on a somewhat related note, actually, one of the questions that we just got from a guy named Steve just asked, he said, we noticed the southern boundary of the freezing precipitation line move slightly northward in the 4 p.m. update. Do you anticipate that the latest computer models will hold true, or do you expect that the southern boundary will dip back down to what was initially forecasted? Now, this is the trouble with forecasting. The models change, sometimes hour by hour, and each one of the models are showing a slightly different solution. So when you're talking about such small amounts of ice accumulation over such small areas and trying to, get down to the county by county and city by city level, it can get very tough to get that accurate with, because we're dealing with, a whole lot of very complicated computer simulations. So to get down to that level can sometimes be a little bit tougher than even we're capable of handling.
That's true. Yeah, and it depends on where the freezing temperatures actually will be occurring, and it's never going to be exactly perfect. I mean, you could be within, say, 5 miles of a certain area and they could see freezing precipitation and you may not, and that's what, it's the differences are like that small, and sometimes it's hard to really predict that level of accuracy.
One of our commenters also just posted on here. Now, I don't have any confirmation of this, but one of our posters did say that Evangeline Parish schools have been closed for tomorrow and Tuesday as well. Again, that's not confirmed, but we are getting that. One of our posters on our Facebook page here have indicated that Evangeline Parish schools are now closed both Monday and Tuesday as well. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Michael asked, will the frozen precipitation reach the Lake Charles area or Westlake? And what are the possibilities of school closures for Calcasieu Parish? And will it cause travel hazards on the I-10 or 210 bridges in the Lake Charles area? At this point, we do think that there will be some freezing precipitation in the Lake Charles area, mainly going to be tomorrow night and early Tuesday morning. As far as school closures, though, at this time, we are leaning in the direction of probably not. But again, that could change. That's completely left at the discretion of the school board. We have no say in that whatsoever. We have been in contact with pretty much all the school boards across the area all afternoon, and they'll make their decisions either late tonight or early tomorrow morning and then get that out to the local media outlets. As far as travel hazards on the bridge go, if we do see more rain and ice accumulation than we're forecasting now, we could wind up with some travel hazards. Those bridges will have the potential to be closed. But based on what we're forecasting right now, if that pans out correctly, I wouldn't expect that. Yeah.
And I've noticed a few of the questions actually are regarding places like Shreveport and maybe even Houston as well, places in Texas. And I did a little looking at some of the forecasts for the surrounding area. I know Shreveport's area, they are expecting some pretty decent amounts of ice and maybe some sleet as well up into their area. So they do have a winter, I believe it's a winter storm warning out now, don't they? I think they've actually upgraded to a warning. So they are expecting some decent accumulations up towards Shreveport, and I also know toward Dallas as well, there's some expectation of accumulations. So those two areas probably see a little bit worse conditions than we will down here. I know going toward Houston should be okay. They look like they're going to stay probably below where the freezing precipitation will occur. It looked like most of the precipitation over toward them is going to be probably north of a Brenham to Cleveland line in their area.
One of our other commenters on Facebook mentioned that he says, bring it on. After all the cleanup work I've done since the December 2013 ice storm, he's ready for it. But this is not expected to be quite on that level. A lot of us do remember that ice storm event, but we're not expecting nearly as much ice accumulation this time around as we did with that. So if you experience power outages or significant impacts from that event, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see a repeat scenario with this event. Let's see, what else? Did you discuss Baton Rouge?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I live in Pine Prairie and work in Alexandria. Will these areas be affected as far as me driving to and from work? Basically, for those areas that far north, you're going to be dealing with the same situation that a lot of the schools are going to be dealing with the potential for those bridges and overpasses to freeze up. And once they do, local sheriff's departments and police departments will shut those bridges down. So if your route to work crosses any one of those bridges, you could wind up having to find either an alternate route or having to call in sick that day, tomorrow or Tuesday. Commenter from Wisconsin says, that's nothing. Try 5 feet of snow up here. No, thank you.
No.
I don't want any of that. That's why we live down here. How come KPLC says that the freezing rain isn't going to reach Lake Charles? Well, like I said, this is a very complicated forecast, and there are a lot of different computer models with a lot of different scenarios broken down. So either way, we're not going to wind up with much in the Lake Charles area. It is possible that Lake Charles might not see anything at all. Now, based on what we've been looking at, we do think we are going to see a little bit in the way of freezing precipitation, but the forecast isn't as off by as much as you think it might be. The fact that we at the National Weather Service are saying there will be freezing rain, KPLC saying they're not.
We're kind of on that borderline area.
Right.
One of those zones where it could potentially, we could see a little bit of accumulation, maybe even a little bit south of I-10, but right now it's not a real high confidence that we will. We think it's mostly going to stay north of the area, maybe as far south as Moss Bluff possibly, but probably not much further south than that. But I wouldn't say, don't count it out entirely.
Another question says, do we have to worry about losing electricity during the ice storm? Again, it's going to depend exactly where you are. I guess further north, let's see higher ice accumulations, could see some sporadic power outages. But again, we're not expecting anything widespread where, thousands and thousands of people are going to be without power. If you lose power, it's probably going to be pretty localized, and it should only be for a couple of hours. Next question wants to know if there's anything in St. Mary Parish. I think I told somebody before that I was going to leave out a parish, and I think I left St. Mary off my list.
But
I'm sorry, St. Mary.
We don't expect any impacts for St. Mary Parish. Again, coastal sections look like they should be in the clear as far as any frozen precipitation. It looks like it should stay all rain for all the guys along the coast.
It's going to be a cold, dreary rain, and It's not going to be a pleasant day to be outdoors, but there shouldn't be any ice accumulation. Speaking of which, on a somewhat related note, in addition to the potential for winter weather, we also have a wind advisory in effect beginning tomorrow for basically the I-10 corridor southward. Now, a wind advisory means that we're expecting winds in the 20 to 30 mile per hour range. So in addition to being very cold, very dreary, very wet, it's also going to be very windy, and I recommend just staying in bed. That's what I'm going to do.
Sounds like a good plan. I wish I could do that. I have to be here.
Yeah. Any news on the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge? The Atchafalaya Basin Bridge is probably going to be far enough south that we're not going to have to worry about any ice accumulation on the bridge. So, barring any of its usual accidents, I anticipate the Atchafalaya Bridge will be open for business. Let's see. Is Opelousas and Washington going to have to deal with icy roads?
Let's see. That's
St. Landry.
St. Landry, no.
St. Landry is going to be one of those parishes that's right on the border. Northern parts of the parish probably will see some accumulation, but southern parts of the parish probably won't. And in between, you'll probably see a little bit of accumulation. So it's going to be it's going to depend on exactly where you are. As far as Opelousas, there is the potential. I think we're officially looking for 0.05 of an inch in the Opelousas area. So again, it's going to be those bridges and overpasses that are going to freeze. Roads that are directly in contact with the ground are probably going to be in good shape, though. Okay. Let's see. A few more here. And it says next weekend looks even more interesting, huh? To be honest, we've been so busy with this weekend and early this week, we haven't really even looked at next weekend yet. But hopefully we're not dealing with this again. But if we are, we'll be right back here next weekend to take another look. Let's see. Is Evangeline Parish looking to be in the freezing rain or ice accumulation? But I was just wondering. Yeah, Benjamin Parish probably will see a little bit again, especially northern parts of the parish. We're going to be looking at it to be in that 1/100th to 5/100th of an inch range there. And extreme northern parts of the parish may have to deal with those bridges and overpasses with a little bit of ice on them. But further south, as Evangeline Parish gets to the parish border there, you probably be in better shape there. Okay. This one was a little earlier, but do you think a winter weather advisory or winter storm warning will have to be issued for the I-10 corridor or northward? We do have the winter weather advisory in effect. It's not for the I-10 corridor. It's actually further north. In fact, let me bring up that graphic one more time here, if I can, just to take one more look at exactly where that is here. All right. The winter weather advisory begins at 6 a.m. on Monday for basically all the areas outlined in the light blue there. So Rapides, Vernon, and Boyles, as well as Tyler, northern Jasper, and northern Newton counties. A winter weather advisory is also in effect for Beauregard, Evangeline, and Allen parishes, but this one begins 12 hours later at 6 p.m. on Monday. And both of them go, however, until noon on Tuesday. Any areas further south than that are currently not in any advisories, with the exception of that wind advisory I mentioned just a little bit ago. But nothing in the way of winter weather advisories. And based on the current forecast, we're not anticipating having to post those as well. Again, remember, winter weather advisories require there to actually be some rainfall accumulation. Since we're not really expecting rainfall ice accumulation. I said rainfall. We're not really expecting much in the way of ice accumulation across the areas that don't have the winter weather advisories, or if they do, it's expected to be very isolated. So at this time, winter weather advisory is not expected to be posted for those areas. All right. We're back. You're doing a great job, by the way.
Thanks.
I'm just talking away here, and
I know you're doing a good job, though.
Yeah, but you look good. That's the important.
That's fine.
All right. Okay, let's see. Any more questions here? I think that's pretty much all we got. Let me refresh this here. See if we get any new ones.
Looks like a lot of the questions are pertaining to specific parishes and counties, and we pretty much covered each one of them. So hopefully we got a lot of people's questions answered. I think the big one's going to be school closures tomorrow morning for a lot of the folks.
Let's see. How much ice does it take to close most bridges? Actually, not very much. The thinnest layer of ice, anything that gets you off of that friction with the concrete, can cause vehicles to begin sliding off the road. And as soon as that happens, local police and sheriffs will shut down those bridges out of an abundance of caution. Now, in a lot of cases, they'll shut them down temporarily while they get some salt or sand in there to throw that down on the road to try to melt the ice, and then they'll open them back up. But that could be a matter of a couple of hours to get the equipment out there and to get that salted or sanded properly. And as long as you still have ice falling, even that is kind of a losing battle, because the ice will start freezing on the salt and sand too. Okay, well, I think that pretty much that's all the questions I see here for the moment. I hope we did get to your question. If not, it's because I missed it. I apologize profusely. But like I mentioned a little while ago, this broadcast will be posted on our YouTube page shortly. If you missed anything or want to see anything again, we will post those links on our Facebook and Twitter sites here in just a little while. And other than that, I think we're going to wrap up here. Thank you, Mitchell.
Thank you, Don.
All right, everybody stay safe out there, and we will talk to you again soon.
Stay warm.